Chapter 9. Now in the 12th month, which is the month Adar, on the 13th day of the same, when the king's commandment and his decree drew near to be put into execution, in the day that the enemies of the Jews hoped to have rule over them, whereas it was turned to the contrary, that the Jews had rule over them that hated them, the Jews gathered themselves together in their cities throughout all the provinces of the king Ahasuerus, to lay hand on such as sought their hurt. And no man could withstand them, for the fear of them was fallen upon all peoples. And all the princes of the provinces, and the satraps, and the governors, and they that did the king's business, helped the Jews, because the fear of Mordecai was fallen upon them. For Mordecai was great in the king's house, and his fame went forth throughout all the provinces. For the man Mordecai waxed greater and greater. And the Jews smote all the enemies with the stroke of the sword, and with the slaughter and the destruction, and did what they would unto them that hated them. And in Shushan the castle the Jews slew and destroyed 500 men. And Parashadanta, and Dalphon, and Apata, and Parata, and Adelia, and Aradata, and Parmashta, and Arasai, and Aradai, and Vaizata, the sons of Haman, the son of Hamadata, the Jews' enemy, slew they, but on the spoil they laid not their hand. On that day the number of those that were slain in Shushan the castle was brought before the king. And the king said unto Esther the queen, The Jews have slain and destroyed 500 men in Shushan the castle, and the 10 sons of Haman. What then have they done in the rest of the king's provinces? Now whatever your petition, it shall be granted you, and whatever your request, further it shall be done. Then said Esther, If it please the king, let it be granted to the Jews that are in Shushan to do tomorrow also according unto this day's decree. And let Haman's 10 sons be hanged upon the gallows. And the king commanded it so to be done, and the decree was given out in Shushan, and they hanged Haman's 10 sons. And the Jews that were in Shushan gathered themselves together on the 14th day also of the month Adar, and slew 300 men in Shushan, but on the spoil they laid not their hand. And the other Jews that were in the king's provinces gathered themselves together, and stood for their lives, and had rest from their enemies, and slew of them that hated them 75,000, but on the spoil they laid not their hand. On the 13th day of the month Adar, on the 14th day of the same, they rested, and made it a day of feasting and gladness. But the Jews that were in Shushan assembled together on the 13th day thereof, and on the 14th day thereof, and on the 15th day of the same they rested, and it made it a day of feasting and gladness. Therefore do the Jews of the villages that dwell in those unwalled towns make the 14th day of the month Adar a day of gladness and feasting, a good day, and of sending portions one to another. And Mordecai wrote these things, and sent letters unto all the Jews that were in all the provinces of King Ahasuerus, both nigh and far, to enjoin them that they should keep the 14th day of the month of Adar, and the 15th day of the same yearly, and the days wherein the Jews had rest from their enemies, and the month which was turned unto them from sorrow to gladness, and from mourning into a good day, that they should make them days of feasting and gladness, and sending portions one to another, and gifts to the poor. And the Jews took upon them to do as they had begun, as Mordecai had written unto them, because Haman the son of Hammedata the Agagi, the enemy of the Jews, had devised against the Jews to destroy them, and had cast Pur, that is, the lot, to discomfit them and destroy them. But when she came before the king, he commanded by letters, that his wicked device, which he had devised against the Jews, should return upon his own head, and that he and his sons should be hanged on the gallows. Wherefore they called these days Purim, after the name of Pur. Therefore, because of all the words of this letter, and of that which they had seen concerning this matter, and that which had come unto them, the Jews ordained and took upon them, and upon their seed, and upon all such as joined themselves unto them, so as it should not fail, that they would keep these 2 days according to the writing thereof, and according to the appointed time thereof, every year. And at these days should be remembered and kept throughout every generation, every family, every province, and every city, and that these days of Purim should not fail, from among the Jews, nor the memorial of them perish from their seed. Then Esther, the queen, the daughter of Abihail, and Mordecai the Jew wrote down all the acts of power to confirm this second letter of Purim. And he sent letters unto all the Jews to the 127 provinces of the king of Ahasuerus, with words of peace and truth, to confirm these days of Purim, in their appointed times, according as Mordecai the Jew and Esther the queen had enjoined them, and they had ordained for themselves and for their seed the matters of the fasting and their cry. And the commandment of Esther confirmed these matters of Purim, and it was written in the book. All right, let's go back up to verse 1. And we're going to remember yesterday now. The king had given this house of Ammon, everything was made known unto the king now of just what had happened. The king, Ahasuerus, that is, the one who silences the poor, he has given this house of Ammon over to Queen Esther, and she is given over to Mordecai. The king has given Mordecai his ring, and he has set them over, and they have written a decree now that the Jews have the right to stand up for themselves. They have a right to stand up against all those that come against them. We're going to find out with the law. With the law can they stand. But we're going to pick it up here in verse 1. Now in the 12th month, which is the month Adar, on the 13th day of the same, when the king's commandment and his decree drew near to put in execution, in the day that the enemies of the Jews hoped to have rule over them, whereas it was written to the contrary, that the Jews had rule over them that hated them. Now it would be in the 12th month. 12 is understanding. 10 and 2 means the law is witnessed, and we have understanding from it. Even this portion of understanding in the month, over where the month is a period of time, a portion of a whole period. A month is a portion of the moon. It's a time measured by the moon, and that moon is the lesser light which God gave to rule over the darkness. So even in the portion of understanding from this lesser light that God gave to rule over darkness, even that month or that period of time under that moon is called Adar. Adar is the 12th moon of the year, and a year is a total cycle of days. It would be to complete the understandings. Adar means glorious, and it would be on the 13th day of that same month of Adar, the 13th day of it. 13 is 10 and 3, and the 10 is the law, 3 is to complete, even the witness of it, and this is the portion of the complete witnessing of the law, even in its understanding. That would be the day, a cycle of night and day. And the same is the king's commandment. When this king's commandment was that decree that Haman had sent forth with the king's ring, sealed it with the king's ring, to execute the Jews. And we're going to find out that's what we're talking about, this decree, when it drew near, that would be on the 13th day. Verse 2, the Jews gathered themselves together in their cities throughout all the provinces of the king Ahasuerus to lay hand on such as sought their hurt, and no man could withstand them for the fear of them that was fallen upon them all the peoples. And the Jews would gather themselves together and to fight against these that had done the same, to come against them, to destroy them simply because they were Jews. And the Jews is a word that's used in a broad sense. Jews means those of Judah. It literally means those from Judah. Judah was the remnant of the children of Israel, which God had spared, even those remnants of Israel, which were in Judah at the time. 3. All the princes of the provinces and satraps and the governors and they that did the king's business helped the Jews because of the fear of Mordecai who was fallen upon them. So all these princes, these are all the rulers of the provinces and the satraps. These satraps and the governors are these ones that are set over the rules and laws, these judges and these governors, these ones that keep charge of the provinces, that do the king's business. They help the Jews because of Mordecai, which now had the king's ring. Mordecai is that small portion of men. See, even that small portion they received in the beginning. And all the peoples will find out there was a fear fallen upon them, which would be from the Lord. This would not be the first time this has happened. For Mordecai was great in the king's house, and the fame went forth throughout all the provinces, for the man Mordecai waxed greater and greater. Now Mordecai, the small portion of men, he was great in the king's house, and his fame, his notoriety, went forth throughout all the provinces. For this man Mordecai was getting stronger and stronger, and it would be several months. He sent his decree forth in the 3rd month, and it is now the 12th month. This is 9 months later, see, and we would find out. God has changed things greatly in those 9 months. 5, and in the Jews smote all their enemies with the stroke of the sword, and with the slaughter and destruction, and did what they would unto them that hated them. And these from Judah, they smote their enemies with the stroke of the sword. And this sword, and what this is it was done with ease. They didn't have no trouble. We'll find out, because God was with them. 6. In Shushan, the castle, the Jews slew and destroyed 500 men. And in Shushan, that's the place where the palace of the king was. That's the castle. The Jews, that's those of Judah who was there captive, had destroyed 500 men. And this 5 is grace. 100 is judgment. And there is always grace in the judgment of men. 7. And Parashadanta, and Daphon, and Aspata. These are going to be the 10 sons of Haman that we are naming here. This Parshadanta. Parshadanta is this that was given by prayer. And Dalphon is this that's dropping, or this dripping. This is like the dew distilling from heaven. And Aspata, this is those that were enticed are gathered. And Porata, and Adelia, and Eridata. These will also be the sons of Haman. And Parata, this is this much fruitfulness, or fruitfulness. And Adelia is I will be drawn up by God. I will be drawn up by God, even this fruitfulness. Eridata, Ari is a lion. Ari means lion, and even these visions of lions we get in our mind, this great strength, this king of the jungle, this terror even. Aradata is the lion, or the great fierceness of the decree. 9. And Parmashta, and Arasai, and Aradai, and Vaisata. And Parmashata is this, it's superior, even this great strength. And Arisai, once again, Ari, the lion, the Sai, that on display, even that these great visions of lion, its strength that we have seen, Aridai. Even this great fierceness is enough. And Vaisata it's as strong as the wind. And the wind represents time. It's that which blows across time. It's forever. It's something that God done. 10. The 10 sons of Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Jews' enemies, slew they, but on the spoil they laid not their hands. And these would have been the 10 sons, these we just named. These 10, that's the law. See, the sons are those that come forth of Haman. Haman is that magnified one. He was the one who come forth out of Hammedatha, this one who was magnified twice, and this would be the Jews' enemy. The Jews' enemy. These are those of praisings. These are those of praisings' enemy. We'll find out, though, they don't take the spoil. 11. On the day the number of those that were slain in Shushan the castle was brought before the king. So the king's going to be told now what was done in Shushan. Shushan, that lily. Shushan means lily, but the understanding of it is that which springeth forth, even that which is flowering. 12. And the king said unto Esther the queen, the Jews have slain and destroyed 500 men in Shushan the castle, and the 10 sons of Haman. What then have they done in the rest of the king's provinces? Now whatever your petition, it shall be granted you, and whatever your request further, it shall be done. So the king says to Esther, Esther's that star. She is the star of the story the book's named after. Esther is the light and the understanding that comes from heaven. That's what a star is. She is the queen, and that is all the beauty, all the kindness, the mercy, the understanding that comes from the authority of the queen. The king tells her that the Jews, they have slain and destroyed these 500 men in Shushan, which is the castle, that's the palace, and these 10 sons of Haman. And the Jews had destroyed these grace in the judgment of men, which was in Shushan, that place where this is springing forth from, even that lily. When these 10 sons of Haman, and this is the law that comes forth from that one who was magnified, what have they done in the rest of the king's provinces? King wants to know what they've done in the rest. We'll find out. 75,000 is what they slayed in the rest of the provinces. And the king tells Esther now whatever your petition, it shall be granted to you, and whatever your request further, whatever you want besides this, now you shall get it. 13, then said Esther, if it please the king, let it be granted to the Jews that are in Shushan to do tomorrow also according unto this day's decree, and let Haman's 10 sons be hanged upon the gallows. So Esther has requested now that in Shushan the same thing be done again, that the Jews be granted to avenge themselves against their enemies, or to stand up for those that come against them, according to this day's decree, or that which had happened on that day. And Haman's 10 sons, let them be hanged on the gallows. This law that had come forth from the magnified one, let them be hanged on the gallows. Let them be hung there on that place that was prepared for that. 14, and the king commanded it so to be done. And the decree was given out in Shushan, and they hanged Haman's 10 sons. And the king grants Esther her wish, as he said he would do. And he hangs these 10 sons, these that come forth from the magnified one, this law even come forth from the one who was magnified. 15, and the Jews that were in Shushan gathered themselves together on the 14th day, also of the month of Adar, and slew 300 men in Shushan, but on the spoil they laid not their hands. And the Jews that were in Shushan, that's this which coming forth, they gathered together themselves together. This would be on the 14th day. The 13th day was the day Haman's decree went forth. Now this would be on the next day, the morrow of 14th, or 10 and 4 would be 14, and that's the law. It's the work of God, even a portion of it in understanding. This would be in the month. That's that period of time under the lesser light which God gave to rule over the darkness. Even that month of Adar, that's that glorious month. They slew these 300 men in Shushan, and we'll find that these 300 it will complete. See, 3 is always to complete that witness. Complete it. It's done. These judgment of men that were in Shushan, and Shushan was that place, that palace, that castle there, even that they were springing forth. But on the spoil, they didn't take it. It's not about the spoil, the booty, that which comes from the fallen enemy. And 16, and the other Jews that were in the king's provinces gathered themselves together and stood for their lives and had rest from their enemies, and slew of them that hated them 75,000. But on the spoil they laid not their hands. And we'll find out these other Jews, these would be the other ones of praising, that were scattered out in all the king's provinces. These would be all that the king's dominion. They gathered themselves together, and they stood for their lives, and they had rest from their enemies as well. When they slew, this would be of those that hated them, that come out against them, that they stood in defense, not in offense. These 75,000. And we'll find out 70. 70 is 7 tens. 7 is to accomplish. It's perfection, even in the law. These 70. 5 is grace. Grace from God. 1,000, it's in fulfillment, because that's what it is. It's to accomplish the law and grace in the fulfillment of God. But this spoil, once again, they lay not their hands. And on the 13th day, 17, On the 13th day of the month of Adar, and on the 14th day of the same, they rested and made a day of feasting and gladness. And on the 13th day, once again, that's the 10 and 3, the law is complete, this portion of understanding in the month of Adar, that period of darkness that's glorious. And this 14th day, that's the law. It's the work of God and the portion of it in understanding. That would be the same day they rested. And they made it a day of feasting and gladness. It's set for a festival, for perpetuality. It's forever from generation to generation. We're going to find out 18. But the Jews that were in Shushan assembled together on the 13th day thereof, and on the 14th day thereof, and on the 15th day of the same, they rested and made it a day of feasting and gladness. But these Jews, these praisings that were in Shushan, that's that place, that palace, this that's springing forth, that lily, it would be on the 13th day. Once again, the law is complete, even a witness of it, the portion of understanding in it, and the 14th day. See, why the 14th day is that law. It's the work of God, even a portion of it. And on the 15th day of the same, they rested because, see, that the king's decree was limited to Shushan on the second day. And on the 15th day, that's 10 and 5, see, the law is the grace, even the portion of it in understanding. And the same, that is the rest of it. There is feast, there is gladness, and that was in Shushan. 19. Therefore do the Jews of the villages that dwell in the unwalled towns make the 14th day of the month of Adar a day of gladness and feasting, and a good day, and of sending portions one to another. That's why, see, the Jews, these are those of praisings, these are those of Judah, of the villages that dwell in the unwalled towns, all those scattered out in all the provinces of all the earth, make this 14th day, and 10 and 4, that's the law. It's the work of God, and even a portion of it in understanding. Even in that month, that's that period of time under darkness, even that period of the light that God gave to rule over the darkness of Adar, that's that glorious month. It's a day, and that's even a day is a cycle of understanding, of gladness and feasting, a good day. It's a good day, and it's a sending of portions one to another. This is to send gifts one to another, and we'll find to the poor. 20, and Mordecai he wrote these things and sent letters unto all the Jews that were in all the provinces of King of Ahasuerus, both nigh and far. So now Mordecai, and this is how this celebration, this day of feasting, was set in place. See, Mordecai is that small portion of men. He wrote these things, and he sent these letters unto all the Jews. That's all those of Judah that were in all the provinces. That's that kingdom, that rule of Ahasuerus. He's one that silences the poor, both near and far. 21. To enjoin them that would keep the 14th day of the month, Adar, and the 15th day of the same yearly. To enjoin them to come with them and set themselves together, to come together, to celebrate this 14th day of the month of Adar. And that's, once again, it's the law, it's the work of God, even a portion in understanding in that month of Adar, that glorious month, and the 15th day of the same yearly. And these 2 days, and the 15th, see, the 15th day. The 15th is, law is the grace and the portion of understanding, even in the same, this yearly, done perpetuality. Yearly is a greater cycle even of days, even a greater understanding of all those things. 22, the days wherein the Jews had rest from their enemies, and the month which was turned unto them from sorrow to gladness, and from mourning into a good day, that they should make them days of feasting and gladness, and sending portions one to another, and gifts to the poor. And that these days, and even these understandings, see that God, He is able to deliver. This month, even that portion, even in that portion of lesser light, which was turned from them from sorrow to gladness, from this mourning into joy, and from mourning into a good day. See, from crying even to a thing that was good, it turned out to be a good thing, and it's a good understanding, that they should make them days. and even understandings of feasting and gladness, and sending portions one to another, and gifts to the poor. Even in exchanging gifts and sending gifts to the poor, these gifts would be to make known the understanding of God's mercy. And the Jews took upon them to do as they had begun, and as Mordecai had written unto them. So the Jews start this tradition, and this would be the reason of it, and they will call it Purim. And this would be the letters that Mordecai had written to them. Mordecai, he's that small portion of men. 24, because Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagi, the enemy of the Jews, the enemy of all the Jews, had devised against the Jews to destroy them, and had cast Pur, that is, the lot, to discomfort them and to destroy them. And it was because Haman, that was the magnified one. Haman is the magnified one. He was that one that come forth from that which was magnified twice. The Agagi, this one that thought he would be over top, or the one that was over top, the one that was outdone. He wound up being outdone. He was the enemy of all the Jews. They had devised against the Jews to destroy them. They had cast Pur, and this is the lot, and this is where they cast lots. We remember from day to day, from month to month, for the whole year, until finally they figured out what day they would do it. 25. But when she came before the king, he commanded by letters that his wicked device, which he had devised against the Jews, should return upon his own head, and that he and his son should be hanged on the gallows. But when she, and that would be Esther, she is the queen, she came before the king commanded by letters that this wicked device, that which Haman had devised against the Jews, against those of praising, should return upon his own head. And him and his sons should be hanged on the gallows. And the gallows is that place prepared for that. 26. Wherefore they called these days Purim, after the name of Pur. Therefore, because of all the words of this letter, and of that which they had seen concerning this matter, and that which had come unto them, wherefore they called these days, and these are even peace understandings of Purim. Purim is named after the name of Pur, and Pur means this lot, the casting of lots. But not just a casting of any lots. These would be the lots of destruction, to destroy. And that's what Pur means. Therefore, because of all the words of this letter, and that's what we've been reading, this letter from Mordecai, and that which they had seen, and these would be all the perceptions that come with it, this matter. This is why they keep the festival of Purim. 27, the Jews ordained, and took upon them, and upon their seed, and upon all such as joined themselves unto them, so as it should not fail, that they would keep these 2 days according to the writing thereof, and according to the appointed time thereof, every year. And that's why we see the Jews still today. They do keep this festival. This is the festival of Purim. The Jews are those from Judah, those of praisings. They took it upon their seed, and upon all them that joined themselves unto them, that are of the same understanding. See, that would be to make yourself observant of the law of God, that it should not fail. That would be perpetual. See, they would keep these 2 days, no witness these understandings, according to the writings thereof, and according to the appointed time. And that is that time, that's that period. See, in every year, that's the greater understandings of it all. 28, and that these days should be remembered, kept throughout every generation, every family, every province, and every city. And these days of Purim should not fail from among the Jews, nor the memorial of them perish from their seed. And that these days, even on these understandings, that God is merciful, that God is in control, that God rules on the earth, even in the king's house. They should be remembered and kept throughout all the generations, by every family, every province. It's all the kingdom of God in every city, those places of God. That these days, these understandings of Purim, this when they cast these lots of destruction for the Jews, that they should not fail from among the Jews, those of Judah, nor the memorial of them, from their seed, that these days should be remembered. 29. Then Esther the queen, the daughter of Abihail, and Mordecai the Jew, wrote down all the acts of power to confirm this second letter of Purim. So Esther, she is the star. Esther is this great understanding that comes from God, the light. God is merciful. She is the daughter, and that is the understanding of Abihail. Abihail is the father of might, the father of power, the father of ability, the father of strength. And Mordecai, that small portion of men, the Jew, those of praising, wrote down all the acts. And these are that which would be required to make it a law, to make it a rule, to confirm the second. That would be to witness this letter of Purim. Once again, that casting of lots of destruction that God delivered them from. 30. And he sent letters unto all the Jews to the 127 provinces of the kingdom of Ahasuerus, the words of peace and truth. He sent these letters to the 127 provinces. That was all those provinces that was given unto the rule of Ahasuerus, the kingdom of Ahasuerus. Ahasuerus was the one who silenced the poor. This 127 provinces, and that's the judgment. 20 is redemption. Why? Because see, 2 tens, that's we witness the law. And 7 is perfection. It's the accomplishment of throughout all the provinces. There were words of peace and truth. 31, to confirm these days of Purim in their appointed times, according as Mordecai the Jew and Esther the queen had enjoined them, and as they ordained for themselves and for their seed the matters of fasting and their cry. And this would be to confirm these days of Purim, even the understandings of these casting of lots of destruction in their appointed time. And this would be on those 2 days in the 12th month, according to Mordecai, that small portion of men. He was that of praisings, and Esther, she's the star, the queen, that beautiful understanding that comes forth, the loveliness, the tender, the mercy even. And they had joined them, and they ordained themselves and for their seed the matters of the fastings and their cry. This was because of the prayer and this great answering that God had given them of their prayers. 32. And the commandment of Esther confirmed these matters of Purim, and it was written in the book. And this is the book that it was written in, and this was the letter that confirmed it. These matters of Purim. Esther is the queen. This great light and this understanding that comes from it, about these matters of Purim, that where they cast lots for destruction. And it was written in this book so we can have a witness, we can have understanding. That's what all of it's here for. We're going to move forward from here to chapter 10. Turn and return.